Welcome to Cheltenham Borough Council Licensing Subcommittee Alcohol and Gambling, being held here on Wednesday the 4th of June 2025. My name is Councillor Simon Wheeler and I have been elected Chair of the committee. This meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council YouTube channel, and the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until the issues have been resolved. If you're here to make representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery. The recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. Please note a fire alarm test is not expected, so if the alarm does sound, you should immediately make your way to the nearest exits here and just here. I have no apologies and any declarations of interest. So I think there was myself, Councillor Dr. David Willingham and Councillor Steve Stanhart attended a site visit. Because this is a regulatory item, members must be present and have heard the proceedings in their entirety to vote on this item. We will ensure that the applicant and the applicant's representative, if they have one, are present in the meeting. We will ask the licensing officer to introduce the report. Members will get the opportunity to ask licensing officers questions. The applicant will then or their representative, will have the opportunity to ask the licensing officer questions. Objectors will be given the opportunity to ask the licensing officer questions. Then the objector will be given the opportunity to speak. We ask you to limit to no more than 10 minutes. Where am I? Members and their applicant and the applicant will be given the opportunity to ask objectors questions. The applicant or their representative will be given the opportunity to present their application or make their case. We expect applicants to try and limit their this to no more than 10 minutes again. We will be a little bit flexible on that because we only have the one case, but then members can ask the applicant questions. Objectors can ask the applicant questions. The applicant will be given the final right of reply. Then members will then retire to debate the matter and to write a decision notice. Then members will return to the chamber and Chair or legal officer will deliver the outcome. So I would like to invite the licensing officer to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The copy of the report has been distributed to the applicant and to interested parties, so I'll try and keep it brief for everybody's sake. We are here today to determine a premises licence application made by Mr. Aaron Maximan for 4 Montpellier Walk, Cheltenham, with a proposed trading name of Jibu. The activities applied for as part of the application are as follows. Please bear with me because there are different times and dates for each activity. So the sale of retail by alcohol, Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. until 10 p.m, Friday to Saturday, 9 p.m. until midnight, and Sunday, 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. The performance of live music is Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. until 11 p.m, Friday to Saturday, 7 p.m. until midnight, and Sunday, 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. The performance of recorded music is Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. until 11:30 at night, Friday to Saturday, 9 a.m. until 1 a.m., and Sunday, 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. Finally, late night refreshment, which is Monday to Thursday, 8 p.m. until, 11 p.m. until 11:30, and finally, Friday to Saturday, 11 p.m. until midnight. The application was subject to the usual 28-day consultation period, where a number of representations were received. 2 representations were received from responsible authorities. These were the police and environmental health. Neither representation was an objection, and both were conditions which were agreed with the applicant. 14 representations were received from interested parties. 11 of these, following mediation, stood as objections. These objections primarily related to the licensing objectives of public nuisance and crime and disorder. It is worth noting, however, that all of the licensing objectives are of equal importance, and for completeness, these are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. In determining the application, the committee may grant the licence as applied for, grant the licence subject to modified conditions considered appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, refuse to specify a person in the licence as the designated premises supervisor, or reject the application. In determining the application, the committee must have regard to the authority's statement of licensing policy and section 182 statutory guidance. The licensing authority's policy makes clear that the promotion of the licensing objectives is paramount. The report goes into some detail about what members and the committee might expect from the applicant in relation to the 4 licensing objectives. The report also details the authority's consideration for the core hours for licensable activities. Whilst the council seeks to avoid arbitrary restrictions on licensing hours that undermine the principles of flexibility and allow each application to be determined on its own merits, it believes that for a restaurant, a terminal hour no later of 1 a.m. for all licensable activities will not have a harmful impact on the licensing objectives. Members must also have regard to the statutory guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act. The guidance states that responsible authorities are the main source of advice where applications are received and representations are received during the consultation period. Members should rely on the responsible authorities to guide them when they are seeking to promote the licensing objectives in determining the application. It is worth noting that members should not feel that they have to attach conditions to a premises licence if it is not felt that they would be appropriate to the promotion of the licensing objectives. If they do feel attaching conditions would be appropriate, they must be proportional. It is also worth highlighting that there is some deregulation within the legislation based around the Live Music Act. As a result of these changes, no licensing permission is required for the following: a performance of unamplified live music between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. on any day, a performance of amplified live or recorded music between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. on any day on a premises authorised to sell alcohol, provided that the audience does not exceed 500. Members must determine this application on its individual merits with a view to promoting the licensing objectives. These are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The report again notes that comments were received from 2 of the responsible authorities, the police and environmental health. I can confirm that comments and conditions were agreed with environmental health eventually, and these are attached as a supplementary document to the report. Members in determining the application must give weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, the representations and supporting information presented by all parties, the statutory guidance and its own statement of licensing policy. And that, Chair, is my report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any member questions? Councillor Stenhouse.
Just for clarification, a lot of these alcohol and so on sales start at 9 a.m. Is that a sort of standard time?
So the core licensing hours that the policy suggests is a commencement hour no earlier than 10 a.m. Again, that is not to bind the committee arbitrarily to that start time. And it is worth noting that a lot of the representations seem to concern the evening time more than the early morning. However, the core licensing hours presented in the policy are for a 10 a.m. start.
Councillor Ingham.
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm that the application site is defined to be within the town centre area, i.e. the council has assessed this in terms of the policy and that this is designated to town centre in terms of licensing policy.
Yes, that is correct. It's worth noting that for restaurants, there is no separation between town centre and non-town centre venues for the core licensable hours.
So, objectors, do you have any questions of the licensing officer?
I don't believe I do at this stage, thank you.
Sorry, I missed that. You say no?
No, I don't at this stage.
Okay. And yourself, sir? No. Okay. So the applicant, do you have any questions for the licensing officer?
Yeah, I think there's a typo in the beginning of the sale of alcohol. At the beginning, it says it stops sale at 10. But on page 29, it's got till 11:30.
So apologies, quite right to point it out. Just to clarify, the sale of alcohol is a 11:30 p.m. finish between Monday to Thursday. I believe that's correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Not really questions, more of just when I liaised with the local residents that had concerns. My main objective is to add value to the community and not disrupt it.
Yeah, I think that you can actually add when you have your opportunity to address the meeting as opposed to just... So just at the moment, we're looking for
No questions.
questions for clarity from the officers. Okay, right now I have two objectors. So please can I ask Stuart Bradley if you'd like to address the committee.
I have the business next door to number 4, and my main concern is the level of noise. And we've been there for some years, and there's been bars there previously, and the level of noise gets quite loud sometimes, and we have a residential property above the business, so our party wall is adjacent to the applicants. And because it's residential on our side, on the other side, across the road in the courtyard, there's a lot of residential properties around. I felt the licensing hours they were asking for were too late in the evening. If I was living there, I wouldn't want a lot of people moving around at 1 o'clock in the morning. So in my mind, all I was hoping for was a balance between residential people's opinions and hospitality. I understand that, there's going to be some activity in the area, but I just felt it was going on too late into the evening.
So, Katie Peters, if you like.
Thank you. I mean, echoing Stuart's comments, really. My concerns are around the residential tenant that we have in number 5. I'm the property owner and Stuart runs the business there. I'm concerned for their welfare in terms of having late night noise, you know, every night of the week, having the music, and I really appreciate that it's being set as a background music, ambient noise, but if, you know, once you've added people and chatter and conversation in a nice social environment, that's going to create noise for our tenants. So again, it's really restricting the hours that can go on to, so that our tenant can have a peaceful life and continue living in the flat sort of undisturbed, as well as other residents. And then, of course, there's the comings and goings late at night as well. I think I also had a sort of probably more of a question around, I'm a little unsure what is being proposed in terms of outdoor seating, because in the paperwork we've received, there's been sort of something that I've interpreted slightly contradictory of whether there's going to be out drinks. In one comment, it said there would be no outside drinking, and then in the other that it would be stopped by 9 p.m. And I think in one document it's 10:30. So I'm not quite sure where we stand. Again, having that sort of noise outside your living room window of an evening, that's also, I think, really intrusive into our tenant's life. So it's really concern for his well-being and being able to continue living in that property with relatively no more disruption that he has now. Thank you.
I think certainly in terms of outdoor tables and chairs, I can answer that one. That would be subject to another planning application, and we have discussed that with or I have mentioned it to the applicant, but that would be another. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I will do. So any application for outdoor seating is administered separately under a different regime. So if the applicant does endeavour to have tables and chairs on the highway outside the premises, that will be a separate application. There are a number of agreed conditions within this application which limit the times that people may be able to drink outside, and whether in what vicinity they are able to drink. So I believe one condition is that it must be immediately outside the premises, and then there is a time constraint, as you say. I suppose it's dependent on, if there will be seating, that's dependent on a separate application, but the conditions agreed would apply regardless of that. So would impact anyone that was not drinking in a seated format outside, if that's of any assistance.
Yeah, could I just, thank you for clarifying that. So I think if I understand this correctly, the licensing that would be agreed here today, if a later planning application for outside seating was agreed, then the licensing would then apply to whatever has been agreed here in terms of the licenses then applicable. And I think the other thing is a concern is around the enclosed area too. If that little corner in the bottom of Montpellier Walk is enclosed and the noise reverberates around. So I'm really most concerned about the noise disturbance than anything else. And I know Stuart has some concerns about rubbish, which is also public nuisance, about accumulation of rubbish. So I'd just like to hear from the applicant how that's going to be dealt with. And recycling refuse and that sort of thing, not to exacerbate the vermin problem that's already there. Thank you.
Do any members have questions of the objectors? Councillor Willingham.
Thanks. In terms of obviously previous uses of the building, which were, as far as I can see, different to that that's currently proposed, did you or any of the tenants, are you aware of any complaints made to licensing or environmental health about noise and what the outcome of those were?
Yes, there was quite a number of complaints about the noise because it used to be a lot of outside drinking, and the police were called, I know, many times. I don't live there personally, so this was from residents who live in the area who'd complained, but I wasn't a party to it, but I know definitely there was disturbances. And as drinking goes later on in the night, it's the fact that the noise level increases the more people have to drink. So It did happen, but I can't say as to how many times, but it did happen on numerous occasions.
And then a second question, bear with me while I just swap the... Have you had a chance to see the additional conditions agreed with environmental health? And do you think that they mitigate quite a lot of the issues that you are concerned about?
So when you say environmental health, talking about the refuse, is that what we're referring to?
So there is an Appendix 3 supplementary agreed conditions about hours of operation, music and noise control, live entertainment. It's an additional document, and I just wanted to check whether you'd seen that, as they're the council's experts, as it were, on all those types of issues.
I think I have seen, I've got a copy of it here with me now, and I think it's comments like sort of keeping the music level to 50 decibels where possible. It's not exactly concrete, and so I suppose it doesn't completely alleviate my concerns, because I think there is also, there's always going to be concerns, and with the best endeavours from the applicants to try and control the noise of people when they're leaving the premises, having had a lovely evening and a few drinks, that's a very difficult thing to control. So, so whilst it does go some way, and I do appreciate that, I still do have concerns, and I think it's really the lateness of the hour is one of the major concerns. It does say on here that there'll be measures put in place for appropriate soundproofing where necessary. So I guess I'm curious to understand what that actually means, because they're listed building, not quite sure how well you can soundproof.
I think we might be looking at different documents. So the one that I've got is an Appendix 3 supplementary agreed conditions with environmental health. So it'll be an additional set of documents. And what they've said is all music shall be background only, designed to complement the seated dining environment. No dance floor shall be provided, and the premises shall operate in a seated service format. All amplified music shall be played through fixed speakers integrated into the building's infrastructure only. Loudspeakers shall not be located in the entrance lobby, and except for access and egress to the premises, all doors and windows at the premises shall remain closed after 2100. And then for live entertainment, when any regulated entertainment occurs, the designated premises supervisor or person nominated by them will ensure the noise from such activities is effectively inaudible inside the nearest noise-sensitive premises. So I'm not sure whether you've got that document.
Apologies, yes, I have seen that. I mean, I guess, how do we measure whether it's inaudible? I guess the nearest noise-sensitive premises is probably us. How do we test that before applying some licensing agreements around this, would be my question.
Can I ask the officers to do I guess there's probably a decibel measurement of what that covers, or given different people's sensitivities to being able to hear, there's probably something there, or is that one for EH to look at?
Sorry, could you just repeat the condition? I was just double checking I was about to print them to make sure you had them. Which was the one that you were querying?
I've got it. So it says live entertainment. So it's the sort of third heading down on Appendix 3, which is the additional document. When any regulated entertainment occurs at the premises, the designated premises supervisor or a person nominated by them will ensure that noise from such activities is effectively inaudible inside the nearest noise-sensitive premises.
So any conditions that will be on the licence will be subject to enforcement by the licensing team. So if there are problems with that particular condition and there is a belief that they're not being adhered to, the advice would be to contact our team and we will investigate and ensure they're in compliance with that condition. There are options always for residents to contact environmental health as well about general noise concerns, who have their own powers that are separate to our regime. So in terms of that particular condition, it's one that would primarily lie with ourselves as the licensing team, but which we may enlist help of EH to assess. And then they are a separate independent entity as an option as well if required.
You've asked all your questions, have you? Yes. So the applicants, do you have any questions of the objectors?
Hello. So yeah, just to go back and to reiterate the policies and procedures that we propose to put your mind at rest, as it were, in relation to those very important concerns that you have. And what I propose is in our policies and procedures is that there's a purpose decibel meter on the premises at all times, and we're going to regularly monitor that and keep a record of that, so that we get a nice understanding of what the environment and how not just the music inside the premises, but also quite rightly the guests as well. I mean, we've talked very briefly about having a small seating area within that, in that small sort of box, as it were. Excuse me. And I think it's, when you're looking at the space, it's no bigger than that table, really. You're going to fit perhaps 6 people. And we've got quite a good restriction on terms of when we can allow people out there with beverages and food, etc. Because it's very important for, that we build a very good rapport with the local residents, and certainly not, we want to get them engaging with us, and not, when we had our Q&A last Monday, we've suggested perhaps, take our mobile numbers, give us a call. For the first time we implement this background music system, it's literally only mid and treble. There's no bass bins at all. There's no live, big speakers essentially. So there should be no frequencies going through bricks and disturbing residents. So what we'd like to try and do is establish a really good, setting with you, a good rapport with you, so that we are able to sort out these issues straight away. Whereas there should be absolutely no need to be going to environmental health or the council. You can communicate with us directly, and we want to create a nice ambience. It's a 40 cover restaurant. The restaurant is actually on the first floor. There's no amplification of music at all on the ground floor or even outside. So we've taken all of these objections very seriously from the residents, and want to be able to come up with a strategy that works well, and also allows Aaron to be able to operate his business professionally and with no nuisance to any of the locals. I hope that helps in clarifying a bit more at this stage, anyway, where we're at. Okay.
I allowed you to carry. I was really asking for questions, but what you're saying is probably more your address to the meeting. But are there any specific questions you wanted to ask of the objectors?
No, not at this stage. I think we've pretty get a good understanding of what their concerns are at this moment in time.
So it's now your opportunity to make your case to the committee then.
Are you happy for me, Aaron, or do you want us to go first?
Yeah, you go.
Okay, so in a nutshell, unfortunately, the licensing application is very vague. So when you put live music, and especially for the hours that we are talking about here, you instantly think live DJ, you think bands, nightclubs or pubs or mobile disco, in fact, which is couldn't be further from the type of establishment that Aaron is trying to create here. So essentially, it's a very small tapas restaurant, like I said, 40 covers, and it's just background ambience only. And we want the customers to be able to still converse over the table without having to shout at each other. And I think once the residents and the people concerned, based just around noise for this instance, it's couldn't be further from what the imagined scenario might be. Does that make any sense? And I think when we had the Q&A with the local residents who were able to attend, we actually felt it went extremely well. and we're able to put people's minds at rest. There's certainly a lady who lives in the very local, and she has some health issues, and again offered, like I mentioned, the opportunity to have mobile numbers directly to the DPS, should anything be an issue. And the fact that we've put in policies and procedures to represent that, where we are monitoring the decibels. Obviously, we can only control so much. And then when you've got, say, a table of 10 who's having a birthday and they pop out for a cigarette perhaps and they're conversing, you know, we don't know yet if that is going to be too much for the local residents. So it's really important that we work together and we can see where perhaps we could make alterations that more than what we've already suggested in order to create a good communication between us all, really. I hope that goes some way in addressing the concerns that you have on this particular issue. Okay, over to you, mate.
Are there any members' questions?
It's okay. It's okay. Just really touching on what I said earlier about just adding value to the community. Montpellier is obviously a really nice area, and the concept that I'm trying to bring, I feel, will add to the community. I understand that previously there were, you know, the place wasn't necessarily good for the community and the landlord. So I feel I'm slightly at a disadvantage from the outset with the residents and my landlord. But I also believe in the concept that I'm trying to create, and trying to, you know, these situations, hit them head on, and like the Q&A allowed us to understand the community, understand how they feel, and trying to alleviate any problems that they have. And it's more just being part of the community, and like I said, having our phone numbers where you can contact us if there's a problem or an issue. But yeah, I think the main thing is to add other than subtract.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for missing you out there. Any member question? Dr. William?
Thanks, Chair. So can you give us a little bit more information about the Q&A that you ran, i.e. how did you advertise it? So you put, I'm assuming you put leaflets through neighbouring premises. When you held it, how many people turned up and the sort of feedback that you got? Because I think that would be useful for us to hear, to understand how you did tried to do your community engagement.
So obviously from the applications here and back, all the negative feedback, we wanted to have some clarification, as I guess the licensing was misleading for what we want to do. So I decided to do a Q&A. We advertised it in the windows of the restaurant, handed some leaflets out to local businesses, told them the actual times we were going to be opening, and left an email, a time and a place where to meet, which was last Monday at All by One at 12. 5 residents attended. I think it went very well. They asked us questions about the concept, noise, rubbish, as this gentleman said. Working with Viola, which is one of the biggest waste management companies in the UK. So I had a representative that come out and scope the local area, because obviously, you know, rubbish is a massive part of what we're going to need to be sorted out. I don't know if I spoke to your wife previously about the rubbish, and obviously where the parking is, there's where Ask Italian, there's rat boxes, so we know we're not allowed to have the rubbish bins there. It will have to be in a different location. But these are the things that we are liaising with the right people to make sure that that's done properly. Regarding the Q&A and the people that turn up, we pretty much addressed everything we've addressed here with them. From my understanding, they seemed happy with what what we said. I think a lot of it was understanding that it is a restaurant-led business, not a bar-led business. I think that's the biggest thing, that previously it was a bar. And that's obviously where the noise pollution was probably a bit more than what it would be here. But I think the understanding of it's going to be a restaurant is completely different than thinking it was going to be a nightclub with a dance floor and live music that goes on till God knows what time.
Councillor Glenhart?
Yeah, one of the major issues, as we know, is noise and music, and you've addressed that to a large extent. I noted in a couple of letters you wrote to residents that you said the levels wouldn't go above 50 decibels, but I think that view has slightly changed or nuanced since, because you want to check what happens when you open up. So what sort of levels are you going to be talking about? The other thing is, I'll come back to that.
I mean, Liam's got a degree in music, and he's really, really useful. He works with different places, whether it's restaurants, cafes, bars, etc. So we kind of put a cap on 50 to see how that would be. I think that should be significant. With the restaurant, it is background music, so we want people to converse. We don't want pumping music where people can't converse or they're shouting over the music. So it was suggested that 50 would be adequate enough. And with implementing decibel readers, we could kind of alleviate any concerns from the residents. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it's important that that everyone understands that there's a record being kept, and we're going to pursue this for a minimum of a month to start off with, and perhaps even continue it if necessary. But it's all about control. We can only do so much in terms of what music's being played, but then we also got to take into consideration our guests as well, and how that's going to, what sort of decibels are we going to be reaching in that small little cul-de-sac where we propose to have outside seating. So it's really down to how we're not disturb the residents and the locals. I understand from the reports I've read, there's children that live in the area. So we want to be able to have the right footing. We want to be able to record what's happening and keep a record of it for the local authorities should they want to investigate it. But I think with all the mechanisms we're putting in place, we're able to manage it quite well. And again, to reiterate, this is only background entertainment. This isn't the food and the atmosphere, the ambience. It's all held within the premises on the first floor of the premises. So, and again, with the information that this lady mentioned a minute ago, where possible, that relates to the fact that we can control inside and we can reduce a maximum 50 decibels on our music system. But if you've got 15 guests outside, perhaps having a smoke or just arriving, how loud is that going to be? We're going to have to monitor that and be vigilant about how that is, if that is going to cause a concern. And we would like to be able to address that immediately and come up with some structures to be able to implement that to make it better.
Okay. Do either of the objectors, both of the objectors, have any questions of the applicant?
Just listening and reading what's been said, I feel that the applicant has addressed a lot of the concerns as residents in the area have had. What just concerns me is the length that they're going to be staying home at night on the weekends. And I feel it's a bit excessive. I was living there and people were leaving their premises at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd be put out if I was woken up every time. So that's really now my only feeling on what's happening is how late you're keeping the place open.
Well, the sale of alcohol will stop previous to that. And what we're asking for is nothing more than any of the other places along Montpellier have. Harry Cook's, All Bar One, on the weekend they're till 1. In fact, Harry Cook's stay open later than what we are proposing. So what I'm asking for is no more than what any other place has along that area. But because of the nature of the business, I would make a sound assumption that it's going to be slightly different, as people in All Bar One and Harry Cook's, which are a bar-led business, would be slightly different than a restaurant-led business. That's my assumption.
Just in response to that, places you've mentioned are much further away from residential, whereas All Bar One, Harry Cook's, there's no residential in the next adjoining premises, where obviously with us there is. So I appreciate what you've said, but we're a lot closer residential to what they are up the road. Notwithstanding that, I would like your business to be successful, but obviously does not impact too much on the residents in the area.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I mean, one of the complaints in there was regarding Harry Cook's, and there was a resident, I'm assuming, that lives on the other side. So said that, you know, she has the manager's number regarding noise, pollution, or if there's issues. So, I mean, I was under the understanding that it was residents all around. But I can understand your concerns. For me personally, because it's a different type of business, I don't think it's going to be the same.
Could I just add, I think that you're absolutely right, you've got a different business model, but I don't know many restaurants that stay open till 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, I wouldn't expect a restaurant to have such long opening hours as a bar. So I think this is one of our concerns, and possibly from the outset, seeing it on paper and not hearing the details and things like that, was what is this business going to be? Because you're asking for bar hours and then you're saying, well, we're not a bar. So I think it's that reassurance. If you're a restaurant-led business, then I would expect restaurant hours, which whilst the licensing allows those late hours, in actual fact, I know very few restaurants, good quality restaurants, that stay open that late. So I question why the need to be open so late if that's your business.
So with my concept, it's based on places that I've travelled. I've travelled all around, and the experience that I'm trying to give is experiences that I like. I don't like to go clubbing. I don't like to be in an environment where there's loads of young people drinking Jaeger bombs, for example. It's more of an environment where people can converse till, 11:30 on a Saturday. They can drink wine and they can have small plates as the food is tapas. And what that does is that allows people to still be in a place that has an atmosphere with food and drinks than it does if they don't want to go into town and go to a place. It's more a city-led concept. Bristol, London, Manchester, amongst other places that I've travelled. So it's kind of that concept, but in Cheltenham. And I feel like the demographic of people in that area aren't going to be younger people that want to get drunk. It's more of a social place where people can, enjoy a nice bottle of wine, enjoy good food, enjoy a good ambience. So it's more of like being able to do that until a certain time and then go home, rather than it finish at, for example, say 10 o'clock and then feel like, okay, then we have to go somewhere else. That's basically my concept.
Okay, if that's all your question. I'd now like to give you the opportunity of your final right of reply, if you have anything further to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it about 3 times now, but I think it's just based on added value. I feel like my idea that I'm trying to bring to Cheltenham, and especially Montpellier, will bring something different. But like I said previously, just adding value to the community, and hopefully, when it happens, or if it happens, we can alleviate any concerns from the local residents and they can see what we're actually trying to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I think if we would retire, that's okay with you. If you'd like to wait here, we'll try and be back by, say, 25 to. Okay. Right, okay then. We've made our decision and I would like to ask the legal officer to read it out for you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Having considered the application, the evidence provided, the representations made by all parties, including those made at the hearing and the written representations of the other persons received who were not present at the hearing, the provisions of the Licensing Act 2003, the obligation to promote the full licensing objectives, the relevant sections of the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the statutory guidance, it was resolved that the premises licence be granted in accordance with the application set out, subject to the additional conditions agreed with Gloucestershire Constabulary and the Environmental Health Authority being added to the licence. The reasons for this decision were that opening hours mirror other establishments in the street. The applicant seems to be willing to engage with the local community and has already done so. He has already agreed the conditions with the two responsible authorities, so there was no need for them to attend today. The consideration has been given to the Council's public sector equality duty as disability was raised. That person has not attended, and if they are in a premises opposite, then this premises is not going to become a nightclub, it is going to be a restaurant. Obviously, it is a town centre location. We've heard today that there's no low frequency vibration that's going to be going through the walls, so the noise level in that respect is not likely to be an issue. As I've previously stated, it is a town centre, designated town centre area, so it's not reasonable to refuse on that ground. The applicant has taken less hours than they are entitled to, and there's nothing to say they need to use those hours all of the time. The applicant has moved their position to try and respond to those that have engaged with him. One of the objections has been withdrawn after mediation. Some objectors seem to have misunderstood the aim of this being a food link business. Again, town centre and noise from customers, that they can only be responsible for those that are on their premises. He has been a responsible applicant from what the committee has seen today. Their environmental health can monitor if there are issues, and it's open to review if there are any issues. And the applicant is actively looking to monitor it themselves, which suggests that he's a responsible licensee. The applicant has held a consultation, and that's a very positive action by him. They've tried to have community engagement with the community to dispel any misunderstandings, and it seems may have been tarnished with the brush of the previous licensee who had a very different business model. It's a single small business, not a big chain that's moving in. The committee understands the objections raised, but hope that the question and answer session that was held last week and answers given today have alleviated some of the concerns. Any issues, the DPS seems to be willing to share his contact details and very much wants to engage with his fellow neighbours. There is a right of appeal within 21 days for anyone dissatisfied with the decision today, and residents are reminded that there is a right of review should there be any issues once the business is up and running. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, yes, I think we were unanimous in that, as the legal officer said, we will be, officers will be giving you this all in writing. I hope that's okay then. So moving on, there are no other items to be discussed. So I will call a close to this meeting.